Sir Osbert pushed down his pants and took out the weapon a man uses to lay love siege. He aimed his enormous battering ram at the opening of her gates and began the attack.
I have a feeling that one day a bunch of Polish developers sat down, looked at their dark fantasy game and thought, kurwa, let's make our own Skyrim with blackjack and hookers. And so after 2 years in early access development, Tainted Grail is finally releasing as a full game, which in today's industry is such a rare event. It's like the second coming of Space T-Rex Jesus. And frankly, developer Questline certainly managed to replicate quite a few features straight from the Bethesda's endless cash cow. From simpler things like lockpicking into looting anything that's not nailed down, to more obvious things like crafting, skill systems, and to some extent abilities themselves. Where Tainted Grail, however, seems to one-up Bethesda's overmilked darling is actually making an effort. Opening map or any other menu is near instantaneous, as if the UI team was crewed by one of the best coders in the industry, which means that at no point the menu stood in the way of gameplay's fast action, and that in of itself feels like a miracle. And speaking of using all manner of rusty implements to practice proctology on the nearby wildlife of Avalon, be it man, beast, or mythical night demon, it seems that Questline can't seem to stop copying other developers, and for melee combat, instead of copying clunky Skyrim garbage, they opted to copy Dark Souls with parrying and a little bit of Doom Eternal with dashing. And though it might sound like some sort of a chimeric abomination that would struggle to find a footing, much like the snappy UI, the melee combat too is refined and satisfying thanks to polished mechanics and fun sound effects. And when it comes to socially distanced acupuncture, otherwise known as the dreaded stealth archer, yeah, it exists, and it works, and also it's broken. Oh, and full disclosure, for some unknown reason, developers decided to send me this massive collector's box. So you'd think that in my commentary it'd be sunshine and daisies from now on. But guess what? You thought wrong. Slatvian can't be bought. No, unless you go to my Patreon. So, here's a list of screw-ups. Starting with the dungeons. Now, level designers got to play with some neat assets, but when it comes to actually designing those dungeons, the simplicity of them shines through like a pimple on a teenager's face. And yet, it's still nothing compared to designing beaches. It's like the artist threw together two assets and said, job done, time for a wank. Yet, if you take a look at the footage from 2 years back, the magic, and quite a lot of other things look like Unity assets. Well, mostly because it was. However, today's game looks quite a bit differently, with unique things everywhere. And speaking of, unlike Bethesda with its hellspawn abomination that is the creation engine, Questline didn't make a massive mistake and leave their game in the hands of cataclysmically malformed MMO engine to prop up their work, but instead chose Unity. And again, like some sort of bizarre reversal, even fast traveling like the UI is near instantaneous. Now granted, there's a reason why games use loading screens in the first place, which is to put curtains on your eyes so that you don't see models popping in, but who cares? Tainted Grail says, nah, fuck it, here's the instantaneous transmission, go play game now, kurwa. However, that also makes me question, was fast traveling even necessary in the first place? After all, the map itself is rather small, smaller than Skyrim's Whiterun and surrounding area, which is fine for the density of things to do around it. But remove the distance fog like in Silent Hill and you notice, things are bunched up tighter than perverts in Tokyo Metro. And speaking of, mages. Yeah, magic in the world of Avalon is just as questionable as a stray crack pipe in a meth house. So I started my first run thinking that, okay, screw the melee and archer, which the game seems to be focusing around. Let's see how either borderline broken or borderline garbage magic can be. Since usually RPG games have no middle ground between these two, when it comes to hocus pocus slinging, like an oracle looking into a crystal ball, I was right. The magic is garbage. The two spells you start the game with are so underpowered that you barely seem to deal any damage in the first place. You might as well be spreading your legs and offering STDs as a more effective form of damage than this magic system. And funny you say that, since these developers did copy from FromSoft it seems, it wasn't too long I discovered the most powerful and efficient spell in the game, the Menstraightenator. Now sure, each cast of this spell seemed to be dealing as much damage as a prepubescent kid in a Call of Duty lobby, proclaiming superiority over your mother and sister, but the bleeding percentage is stacking damage. And remember, bleeding damage in this game seems to be a percentile damage, which you guessed right, will melt any enemy over time. Oh, but if for some reason that stops working, there's a nearby abandoned fortress you can run to from the very start of the game. Here you find two extra spells, one with a frost and one a mega fireball, which, as long as you have enough mana and you can cast, will annihilate pretty much anything in the vicinity. And yet for some reason that's not even the most powerful spell in the game. However, just like I stated before, you can literally rush there after finishing the tutorial mission and invalidate pretty much the rest of the game for hours to come. So clearly developers overfocused on balancing the melee while leaving the magical STD slingers up to their own devices. devices, which is a bad idea, and resulted in a bizarre power ramp up almost instantly. But hey, isn't that kind of the beauty of RPGs, that barely anyone knows how to balance them right, or even bothers to do so? Which at the end of the day basically makes for a rather silly adventure. And what an adventure it is, spurred on by great voice acting, fun writing, hell, even some silly skeletons at the edge of the map selling vegetables. While the music, oh god, the music is amazing. At first I thought that questline managed to rope in Hailong, but no, this amazing music is created by Dunheim. And so my last nitpick really is about the coloring and the tone. While the game is trying to be really grim-darky, or at least dark fantasy, the silliness and the visuals certainly would have benefited from a lighter tone. You know, like Skyrim, but now we have to be edgy. Either which case, for an indie Skyrim or a Polish Skyrim, kurwa, especially with the quality of UI's coding, this game has no right to be as good as it is. But kurwa, it is.
He loves Siege. Battery ram at the...